Good morning and welcome to the AM Report for HAPS News, the network of now. I'm Alex Mahajer, and this morning we'll be joined by Reverend Billy Honor from the New Georgia Project to discuss their work on the ground to register voters and to end voter suppression in Georgia for many years now. And all eyes are on Georgia ahead of these two U.S. Senate races that have gone into special runoff elections in January, and a state that has flipped Democrat for the first time since 1992. We've learned a lot about voter suppression in that state, and we're very excited to talk to Reverend Billy Honor this morning on the AM Report. Welcome everyone to the program, and very excited to welcome in just a moment Reverend Billy Honor to the program from the New Georgia Project to discuss democracy in Georgia and the state of these two Senate races that are coming up in a special runoff election in January. But first, let's talk about today's top headlines. Ronald Klain has been named Joe Biden's chief of staff. He was the man responsible for the Obama administration's Ebola response and is a widely beloved figure amongst Democrats. The move is being celebrated across the board as being very efficient and effective. New coronavirus cases are surging nationwide, with the national death toll now above 242,000, with several states, 5 states, setting records for COVID-19 deaths on Tuesday. I'll note that Pfizer has announced that there is a vaccine that's showing 90% effectiveness against the coronavirus, but that Dr. Anthony Fauci says that may not come until April. So everyone wear your masks and stay safe. The Trump campaign is now 0 for 12 in lawsuits filed around the country alleging voter fraud and other voting anomalies with zero proof. These are baseless allegations, and President-elect Joe Biden is now leading in the national popular vote by 5 million votes, with 77.2 million votes and counting. I'll also note that Arizona officially went for Joe Biden last night. The vote lead by Joe Biden is too great in that state to overcome by Donald Trump. And Georgia will recount its presidential ballots by hand per the request of the Trump campaign. Biden currently enjoys a 14,000 vote lead in that state. And I'll note that recounts historically do not change outcomes of elections. At most, in Florida in 2000, there were 400 ballots that were proven to be wrongfully cast for the other candidates. So that's the most in history. These vote leads that Joe Biden enjoys in these states is far too great to overcome via a recount. But the Trump campaign is still soliciting money from its base, and we'll see how all that pans out. But this morning, I'd like to welcome Reverend Billy Honor to the broadcast. Reverend Billy Honor from the New Georgia Project. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, just existential dread and social distancing.
Sounds like a party.
Yeah, you could call it that. Reverend, you're with the New Georgia Project, which is one of the largest nonprofit, nonpartisan groups in the state of Georgia, who's been on the ground since 2014. Is that right?
That's right. And feel free to call me Billy. That's fine. I'll answer to that. But yeah, the New Georgia Project has been here since 2014, operating in the realm of civic engagement, doing it pretty strong.
Yes, and the goals of the New Georgia Project are to register eligible, unregistered citizens of color in Georgia by the decade. All eligible, registered, unregistered citizens of color in Georgia by the end of the decade. How has this gone for the New Georgia Project? Because this election showed that with voter turnout, the state may look different than we ever anticipated.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a little backstory to this. In 2014, we had a gubernatorial election. The former president of the United States, one of them, Jimmy Carter, his grandson ran for governor, and then former U.S. Senator Sam Nunn, his daughter ran for U.S. Senate, Michelle Nunn, and they got trounced here. It was bad. And many on the progressive side of things were pretty dejected and deflated after that election and trying to figure out what was next for progressives in the state. And that's when Stacey Abrams, who was serving in the legislature at that time, came up with this plan that you just needed to get more of the people who had moved to the state and more of the people who are part of what we call the New American Majority, which is African Americans, Asians, Latinos, women, and children, into the civic process here in the state because a lot of them were eligible but not registered. And so she started the New Georgia Project along with Nsé Ufot, who is still our CEO, with that goal in mind to register over a 10-year period of time 1 million of those who were eligible and not registered among that demographic. And almost halfway there.
Absolutely. And hey, Billy, because I gotta get you, I like calling you Reverend, but I'll just call you Billy. We got a lot of comments this morning from people who are watching and chiming in. Some people saying hello from all over the country. Good morning from Westminster. Georgia is doing a recount, correct? Will it affect the other races? I don't think that the Georgia recount will affect the races, the new Senate special runoff election races. We got some awards from people. If you're watching this broadcast on the HAPS app or platform or website, you can actually click the award button and let us know that you're enjoying it, or leave a comment and we'll bat around with you on air. Hello from New York. Our support be with you and to Georgia, says Mary Gonzalez. Daniel Goff, we love Georgia. And good morning from Carmen Adams. So all of the sudden, we have these two Senate runoff seats that because no candidate in the November election for these two Senate seats, one is held by Kelly Loeffler and one is held by David Perdue, Republicans. No candidate received above 50% of the vote. And because of Georgia's laws, this pushes the race into a special runoff election with the top two candidates. The Democrats in those races are Reverend Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. So that election is January 5th. And all of a sudden, because this entire state of the Senate, the power dynamic in the Senate now hinges on these two races, there's extreme national attention on these races. How are you guys holding up with all this new attention? And what is your message to people who are now very concerned about what's going on in Georgia?
Yeah, things are crazy, to be clear. I mean, there's lots going on, lots happening. Things are changing by the minute here. And it's very exciting. There's a lot of anxiety also in the air, of course, particularly just because we're trying to facilitate a recount while also trying to prepare for a runoff all at the same time. And so the normal process that we would have around just making sure that dates are clear, what are the early voting polling sites, like all the things that those of us who work in the civic engagement, voting rights community focus on when there is an election and certainly a runoff. We're also having to monitor what's happening with these hand counted votes because that matters too. And so it's a lot happening right now, in addition to just the great groundswell of support of people who are trying to come here and want to come here to Georgia and help, which we appreciate, but we want to make sure that that process is facilitated in an orderly manner and in a helpful manner. And so, yeah, we just don't, we don't want people from out of town showing up in some of these small towns like, hey, I'm here to help. It's like, it's like, it's like we should probably talk about this first. So, but I think all in all, things are moving along, and we got a long way to go. It's going to be an interesting next couple months.
Yeah, I've gotten at least 10 text messages since it became clear that Georgia was going to go into these special runoffs of people that are like, we're going to move to Georgia, right? And I was like, well, let's hold up and see what they need first. I'm sure that it's an influx of hundreds of thousands of people, probably not helpful, but what can people do? So what can people do right now who are non-Georgia residents who are very excited and wants to contribute and help?
Well, I hate to be the first thing out the gate, but the first thing you do is contribute to groups monetarily on the ground who are doing the work like ours. We aren't the only ones. Certainly give to the New Georgia Project. Also give to Black Voters Matter. Also give to Fair Fight, their long list action. There are lots of groups that are just doing nonpartisan get out the vote work. And then if you're supporting the candidates on one side or the other, you can certainly give to their campaigns too. I'd start there. But if you want to do something a little more engaged or involved, on November the 21st, we're going to have a live cast, and that live cast will tell you every way that you can be involved and throw down with us over the next several weeks. And it'll talk about ways to phone bank, ways to text bank. So you don't actually have to come here to help. You can also help from where you are, of course. And so I would definitely tune into that if you can. I think that's definitely ways to help right off the bat.
We got some more comments. I mean, like, people are so excited about this runoff. It's wild. I aggressively toast. I think you're commenting from Reddit. It says, I've been contacting these organizations to see how I can volunteer as a software engineer. I live in Atlanta and want to help. So what can people do who are in Atlanta? Are there opportunities for people who are there in Georgia, in the greater metropolitan Atlanta, Fulton County area, who want to get involved and are really concerned about this race? Because so much hinges on it.
It does. It's really important. I would say if you're in the state, go to newgeorgiaproject.org and volunteer. And when you fill out that volunteer form, it'll get you plugged in and find out ways in which you can help. I mean, there are lots of in-state ways right off the bat in terms of canvas opportunities, in terms of, as I said, direct voter contact opportunities around phone banking and text banking. And then, of course, as the apparatus continues to develop, we'll need other types of competencies as well. Maybe some computer competencies along that way as we get offices set up, and just as the whole organization moves towards when people actually start voting, we'll need more help. So I would just say reach out, fill out that form.
Yeah, and we had a comment from a viewer about exposing racism in Georgia, and we know that there's been Stacey Abrams from Fair Fight, who you mentioned, has really shined a light on the voter suppression tactics in the state. And, she ran for governor in 2018. There were voter purges that were happening that were orchestrated by let's just be blunt, the now Republican governor, Brian Kemp, who was at the time the Secretary of State overseeing his own election. Hundreds of thousands of ballots of voters purged. Are the voter purges still a problem, and how do people overcome that? And what is the role of racism in voter suppression in Georgia right now?
Yeah, well, I'll answer the first question first. And so voter purges are definitely still a thing. They're just less a thing because since 2018, a lot of our groups have mobilized and organized and put litigation forth, as well as advocated for legislation. And so there have been a lot of gains made since 2 years ago. I certainly was very much involved in that fight, in the protests that we counting every vote that we had at the Capitol around the gubernatorial election, and subsequently watched a lot of good advocacy come forth. And so the voter purges are a lot harder to do because there are so many more eyes that watch now and are governing the process. That being said, those who want to suppress the power of the voters and of the new American majority that we serve are always looking for new ways to scheme and always looking for new ways to try to fight the future, which is essentially what's happening. They're trying to fight the future and they're losing, but that doesn't stop them from looking for ways to do so. And so, yes, voter purges are still a possibility, but they're a lot less likely. To your last question, you said in terms of racism, I mean, there's a long legacy that goes back to poll taxes in the South, in terms of people being, having to pay to vote in many cases, or poll test, having, crazy geometry and trigonometry questions asked of them just to prove that they were intelligent enough to vote. Which is kind of hilarious when you consider some of the other communities that have voted with no problem in their level of intellectual aptitude, I'll say. But these are the things, the long legacy of voter suppression that's connected to racial prejudice. And it has to do everything with how it is that groups maintain power or try to maintain power by suppressing a group's civic power to make decisions for their political lives. But we're going to keep fighting it, and we're aware, we're vigilant, and we're ready.
Very good. Reverend Billy Honor with the New Georgia Project. So pleased you could join us this morning. Where can people support the New Georgia Project and find you?
www.newgeorgiaproject.org is where I would send you. You can find all the things there about ways to get involved.
Very good. I want to thank the Reverend Billy Honor. Reverend Billy Honor. I gotta call you the Reverend. It rolls off the tongue so much better with the New Georgia Project. The Georgia special election is January 5th. When's the, really quick, Reverend, when is the registration deadline for this election for Georgia residents?
Yeah, December the 7th.
December the 7th.
And early voting starts December the 14th.
Early voting starts December 14th. In person is January 5th. And people can start voting by mail in November, correct?
Yeah, you need to request your mail ballot now if that's your voting plan. You need to request a ballot right now, and you can submit that ballot anytime from when you receive it to the Friday before the election, but we don't recommend that. Make 2 weeks before the election an official deadline for yourself for mailing back the ballot once you've received it, so that you have time to check on it and make sure they received it and make sure there was no shenanigans.
No shenanigans this time, Georgia. Let's be on it, and let's get a fair and accurate representation of the vote in Georgia. Very pleased to have you this morning. This has been the AM Report for HAPS News, the network of Now. I'm Alex Mahajer. We are live every weekday morning at 7:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Eastern, with all of your quick political news and headlines to get your day started right. If you like this journalism, if you like this content, please consider sponsoring it. Visit me at haps.tv/@Alex. And subscribe, or, give us an award midstream and let us know you enjoyed the broadcast. I want to thank Reverend Billy Honor for being my guest this morning, and we'll be back tomorrow morning with Miranda Yaver, the constitutional scholar and political scientist, to discuss what's going on in democracy. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you all tomorrow morning. Thank you, Reverend.